Hello everyone, welcome to EduTap and also welcome to another government scheme session. And the scheme that we are going to do today, it is National Rurban Mission. Here we are talking about Rurban. Focus on this particular word. And so what is it and why do we have to study? Let's look ahead. And in fact, in this NABARD Grade 8 2021, a question was directly from this particular scheme. So let's start with it. But before that, to our new audience, kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel and also join our Telegram channel to get the PDF of every lecture that we provide here on YouTube. Right, so let's start with the scheme. See, we know that rural areas, they exist in India. If we go for that, how to classify an area into a rural or urban, there are different categories, but the base is population here in India. So if in any area the population it is less than 10,000, it is usually considered a rural area. And then we look at this type of area, and this is the first thing that comes in our mind, that yeah, this is a modern area, this is an urban area, right? So here in India, the classification is, if the area it is, the population it is more than 1 lakh, we consider it to be an urban area. But then we have different categories according to how much development has been done. Then we have tier 1, tier 2 and etc, right? But we need to focus on the basics of these two. Now what happens? Does it mean that to develop such areas we need to move ahead to the urban areas? No. So for this there is one more term which is Rurban. So what is Rurban? See, these basically, Rurban are the clusters. Clusters means where there is a group of something, right? So when 15 to 20 villages, they are clubbed together into the clusters, and herein the population it varies to 40 to 50 lakh. All right, so herein when we join these such rural areas where the essence is of that rural life only, people living like that only, but then we provide the facilities that of urban areas. We provide them with good technology, with good other economical services that are used in urban areas. Such areas are considered as Rurban clusters. So herein now you have an idea of this particular scheme, and that is what? That is basically to make such clusters or to work on such 15 to 20 villages, such urban areas wherein the facility, the life that would be of rural area, but the facilities that would be provided on the urban area. So we'll start with the basic things, and yeah, there is one more thing before that we need to focus on. See, before that, the scheme, it is launched in 2016 and the name of it properly, it is Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Rurban Mission. All right, so this is National Rurban Mission, also known as Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Rurban Mission, launched in 2016. But initial to that, we have such similar program, and it was named Provision of Urban Amenities to Rural Areas Pura. This came in existence in 2003, and what happened? See, this was more of a program than a mission or a scheme. So it was introduced as a program, and yeah, then it was quite, you can say, it was modified and then it was made to this particular program. That is the mission that we are talking about here. Now it is a particular scheme. So let's start with the basic things. That is the launch year, which is 2016 in this case. We have already seen in the previous slide. Then coming to the nodal ministry, because this is dealing with the development of the rural areas, that is why the ministry is Rural Development, Ministry of Rural Development. Easy to remember, right? Next come with which type. Herein first look at what is the target of the scheme. All right, so herein development of 300 urban clusters in the next 5 years from the time it was launched. And herein this particular question was asked in your NABARD Grade 8 2021 only. The question was that how many clusters, urban clusters would be made under this particular scheme. So see, this particular scheme, although it was launched in 2016, it has its importance still now, because herein it is dealing with the development in the rural areas. We're talking about development, we are talking about creating the infrastructure, right? So herein the 300 urban areas cluster, it was the correct answer. So herein we are not talking about the particular villages, we are talking about the urban clusters over here. All right, So herein that would be the next 5 years, that was the target. Now let's look at what is the aim, that is to bridging the rural urban divide, bridging the gap between the rural area, the urban area. The first thing that pop up in our mind when we think about a rural area is lack of facilities or not so good infrastructure, right? And while we go for urban, we look for more and more facilities available and services, right? So herein the aim, that is to bridge this particular rural urban gap, the economic gap, the technology gap, right? And also the services. Next, talking about the vision. So herein the government, it has a vision to create cluster of urban villages. All right, so herein what happens when we talk about a group, so when we make clusters, see, first of all, these clusters, they are made according to whatever resources that are available there. Think of just one village having some resources, but then 15 to 20 villages. And one more thing that you should keep in mind when we are talking about urban villages, that these villages, they are continuously means these villages, they are beside each other or at a range, you can say at the range of 5 to 10 kilometer. We consider them to be urban cluster, or we add them in cluster when the difference, it is somewhere 5 to 10 kilometer between the villages, then only we consider it urban villages. Alright, so herein the aim, so that the resources that are, we have the proper resources and that can be utilized properly. Talking about the types, so this is a center sponsored scheme. It means that all the money won't be given by the government, but yes, some of it would be given by the central government, while some of it will be given by the state government, because we are talking about sponsored scheme. Had it been the centrally we have one central sponsored scheme and then we have center sector scheme, right? So had it been center sector scheme, fully that would have been fully funded by the central government, but herein it's sponsored. Now coming to the key feature, there are very little that you have to remember. Rest of we have already done before, and any question that comes up that is made up, you can easily solve. First thing is convergence and critical gap funding. All right, so what is convergence? So here in this scheme, there is no particular provisions or the initiatives that would be done already that exist that would be converged. For example, see, if you think of a good urban village, you would expect good sanitation, right? So for that we already have Swachh Bharat, right? Apart from that, see, so what here I want to say that whatever infrastructure wise or technology driven schemes that we already have, or for sanitation or for making a rural area much more developed, that already exist, they would be converged together. And then there is one more term, that is critical gap funding. So gap means there is some gap between two things, and that would be of what? That would be of funding. So basically what happens, if you have expected one project to complete in XYZ amount, but then what happens, it exceeds. Now there is a gap that has now been generated. So this gap would be, this critical gap funding would be assured by the central government. So central government would pay for whatever gap in fundings that would occur. Next is your two clusters. So we are talking about urban clusters over here, right? So these urban clusters, we know that would be made with the grouping of 15 to 20 villages. Herein so there are two categories to these clusters. One is tribal and one is non-tribal. We are talking about here. So in tribal cluster, the norms that these villages that would come under normal cluster, that are more or less dependent on the type of resources that are available there, that can be clubbed. While in case of non-tribal, there are then different categories, that what is the female percentage, what is the education percentage. You don't have to go much deeper down in that, but yes, there are two types of clusters that exist. Next is, we are talking about urban areas. So how much population does really contribute to be a part of urban area? So herein we are talking about villages specifically. So if any village that is with 25,000 to 50,000 population in plain and cluster areas, and in population of 5,000 to 15,000 in desert, hilly and tribal areas. So what does it mean? Basically, here is categorization done, because in plain and coastal areas people live more, and that is why the population difference here, or you can say count here, is more. And then if we consider desert, hilly and tribal areas, at that time we consider this 5,000 to 15,000 of area. Alright, so these were the key features. And and that is all for today. We'll have a quick revision, right? So we'll start with the launch year, which was 2016. The nodal ministry was Ministry of Rural Development, and here in the target, it is for now for 5 years, that was to have 3,300 urban clusters. Then what we had the aim, that was to bridge the gap. Vision was to create clusters, and then type it is a center sponsored scheme. Features, we have done convergence, we talked about critical gap funding, we talked about 2 type of cluster that would be formed. Urban areas, we looked at what are the different population categorization according to the coastal area as well as the desert, hilly or the tribal areas. All right, so these were the key features. Now there's a homework for you, that is the Ministry of Rural Development is headed by. See why I give this type of questions, some may find as very basic questions. That is because these types of questions are asked in your examination, they can be asked, they have been asked in your NABARD, so that is why you should be prepared with it, and that is your homework. Now these are the toppers of the last class, and which Hansa said the right answer, that was Ministry of Finance, that is headed by Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, and welcome. And then Ayushi said the correct answer. Rekit asked, ma'am, this enough for RBI ESI government scheme? Yes, these government schemes, they are pretty much enough for any examination that you're preparing for. Herein, these are not specifically for ESI, ERD, these are the general government schemes from which you are going to get questions for sure. Next is Rajrao, yeah, thumbs up. Then we have Insecure, NABARD ka result कब आएगा? See, the exam result, it is usually 40-50 at 40-50 days difference, so you can expect it this week also, maybe next week, right? So it is anyway soon only, right? Then Navid said the correct answer, Augustine said the correct answer, Ronan said the correct answer, Anil said the correct answer, we have Edge, we have Monashri, we have Lucifer, and we have Shibani, all said the correct answer. Very good, all of you. And yeah, that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed the session, and if you have any doubt, comment down below, I'll definitely reply to them. Alright, so until next time, thank you.